Howdy folks, and welcome back to Research Methods. This second week we're going to take a look at the research process. We're going to see all of the basic building blocks you need to know to put together an experiment or put together a piece of research. And we're going to see how we go from really vague ideas to very specific testable claims or hypotheses. In this section, we're going to first take a look at research questions and hypotheses. So research questions, the things that we identify that we want to figure out or check on or learn about, and hypotheses, the statements that we make to specify what we're comparing. Operationalization and variables, that's where we're going to learn about how do we specifically choose what we mean when we stated our research questions and hypotheses. Designs is going to be where we look at some of the extra bits of information you want to know so that your experiment is comprehensive. So avoiding pitfalls or setting up more complicated experiments. Finally, in the academic paper section, we'll take just a very quick and dirty look at what sections an academic paper has, and you'll learn a little bit about how to access the academic paper, how to read it so that you're not freaking out and confused. So let's go ahead and get started with research questions and hypotheses. Let's start with a simple claim. So, your parents always complain that people have become more forgetful since the creation of the internet. I'm sure you've heard this before, folks saying that, oh, those millennials and those Gen Z Zoomers really can't remember things very well because of the internet. Um, okay, so we have a clear idea. The internet makes people forgetful. Based off of the stuff we learned last week, what I'd like you to do is try and come up with a theory, a hypothesis, and a set of data to collect to assess that hypothesis. Go ahead and give it a shot right now. I'll give you 3 seconds to pause this video so you can come up with a theory, hypothesis, and data to assess this claim now. 3, 2, 1. Okay, did you come up with your own answers? Here are mine. First, the theory that the internet makes people more forgetful. A hypothesis to check that theory. People will forget things that they learned from the internet more often than they forget things that they heard. What data can we use to check that? Well, you can have people explain things they remembered from the internet versus things that they were told a week after they received that information. And so we would gather how, on average, how often did people remember things for Googled information versus the told information. Now, let's get a little bit more specific here. You'll notice that what we've done in the theory is clearly state what piece of information we're working with. In the hypothesis, we specified that even more by coming up with a specific example that we could check to identify whether the theory is true. And in these 2 following hypotheses, we're going to come up with possible alternatives for what our data will tell us. So the 2 types of hypotheses we've got are the null and the research hypothesis. The null hypothesis simply states that there will be no difference in remembering between information that people Googled and information that they were told. The research hypothesis is that there is a difference in remembering between information people were told and information that they Googled. The reason we have these 2 hypotheses is that it gives us very specific, clear results that we can find from our data. Interpreting our data can be hard, and a lot of what we're going to do in research is take vague ideas like the theory that we were given and turn them into specific things we can check, that we can compare. And this is about as specific as we're going to get, the null versus the research hypothesis. When we analyze our data, the way we're going to analyze that data is with math and numbers. And so there are mathematical formulas for these two hypotheses, and they look like this. First, the null hypothesis. H0, H stands for hypothesis, and 0 stands for null. And so the H0, or the null hypothesis, is that mg equals mt. M stands for mean. G I chose for Google, and T I chose for told. So what this hypothesis says is that the average amount of information people remembered that they Googled is the same as the average amount of people the average amount of information people remembered that they were told. And it pretty much says the exact same thing as the null hypothesis in words. There is no difference in remembering between told information and Googled information. Here we say there's no difference. Here we say that the averages are the same. Can you see how this means the same thing, but this is in mathematical terms? Over here, we've got the same idea, but for the research hypothesis. And actually, I'm seeing a little typo there. We should have H, not 0. We should have something like H A, or HR would actually be a little bit better since we called it the research hypothesis. So we'll just change that here to HR, and I'll fix that up for you when I upload the PowerPoint. Come on, little pointer. There we go. So HR is mg not equal to mt. So again, M means means or averages, G Googled, T told. Our research hypothesis is that the average of information people remember that they Googled is not the same as the average amount of information people remembered that they were told. In other words, there is a difference in remembering between told information and Googled information.